The next step in creating the refinement of this explosion is to bring out some more of these chunks. And the way to do it is to increase the overall density. By increasing the density, we're going to be blocking the hottest part of the flame from our point of view and replacing it with some of the colors specified on the end of our gradient ramp. We can do that by bringing in a particle gradient function curve and using it to drive the global gradient or density. I'm going to do an image compare, and the goal here is to take the highest point where there is particle density and amplify it. And actually one of the easy ways here to do it without kind of messing around with the function curves too much is to access the key properties, right-click property, to have a value of the global gradient density by a magnitude of 20. I'll go to the next key and do the same thing there as well. Now, if I actually look outside of my graph, there we go. If I look at the compare region here, and it's just going to take a second to simulate up, so we've now amplified our endpoint by a magnitude of 20, so we have a greater amount of contrast in our point cloud. And I happen to have kind of moved backwards to frame 30. And so we get quite a bit more detail now. And now if I want to amplify the difference between that detail, here's where I can go in and start to use the Fractal Scalar shader. If I take the clamping colors down, right now the clamping color is allowing me to use almost the full range of color. It's allowing me to use a lot of dark colors, so not black and not white, but very high intensity colors here if I max out at 0.8. If I lower the clamp max, I'm going to restrict the amount of brights in my render. So I'm going to take this down to say 0 and about 0.2. So let's allow for some very darks and some medium blacks. So we've got some dark colors, some black colors in here, and we've got some medium grays, and those are translating into a reduced intensity on our point cloud. If I was to bias in favor of the lighter colors, so again we have our previous render here, and we're already getting a lot more definition out of this render. We can also increase the noise in the particle render as well. So if I want more detail, more little bits, actually let me just come back in here and resimulate. Simulate at around frame 52 or 53. If I find that the color's too moody, I can of course increase the overall clamping factor on my more bright, intense light to come through. But this is giving me a really nice looking explosion. Maybe I'll take this to 0.35. Kind of bias back down a little bit. Let's see what happens if I raise that. Okay, so there's a certain point at which the value seems to jump. So I'm not really liking these lighter colors here, so I'm going to just keep reducing. Let's see what 0.4 does, 0.5. So it should get a darkening here. There we go. I like that a little better. And let's see what happens if I bias in favor of some of the darker colors versus the lighter colors here. So I'm definitely going to bias in favor of the darker colors. And if I scroll down to the early frames of this explosion, I now need to just go in and play around with the lattice parameter to bring up the overall levels of my explosion. It doesn't look hot enough at this point.